This is my first YouTube video, and I forgot to film the intro and the outro, so I'm in different clothes. But anyways, that's not the important part. The important part is that I just interviewed the beautiful Kiara Belen. She was a finalist on cycle 19 of America's Next Top Model. She's a mama, a beautiful mama to a beautiful Maya. She was a basketball player, a singer. She does it all. So I hope that you enjoy the interview, and you can find her at the Kiara Belen on Instagram. Overall experience of America's Next Top Model, and do you think it was really what it was showed, like portrayed through the screen? How did that go?
It was a really great experience, I think, for me and many of the girls who do something like that. It's our first experience like that, like being on set. So it is very exciting in the moment, and it becomes very competitive and very psychological, I think, because you're not allowed to talk to your family or have any connection to the outside world. So it's just you in this house. And so it creates kind of this like different dynamic, but still one that's so exciting because every day is something incredible that you couldn't even imagine. So for me, absolutely, up until that point, it was like one of the best things that ever happened to me, and then what came from it, I learned a lot, about the industry itself and the tough part about it. And to be real, there's going to be a tough part of every industry that you enter into, so it's important to be ready for those obstacles and be the most prepared that you can. So I think it definitely prepped me a little bit. There was still much to learn, but
Right.
it definitely was a great start.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
get thrown into it. I feel like sometimes is one of the best ways to really, you have to do
Yeah.
it, right?
Exactly. I mean, and it's Tyra, and it's like there's celebrities, and I've never been outside the country, and oh my gosh. So it's like I didn't even want to go home. It became that kind of like, I don't want this to end, so I'm giving it all I got. And I enjoyed it. I had a great experience. Yeah.
How long were you filming for? Like, how did that work with no phones? What was that like?
It was interesting, especially because we didn't know that was going to happen.
Oh,
You don't know that they're going to take your phone,
right.
and it's all this secrecy leading up to the date they film because you can't tell anybody. So it created this kind of, oh my God, now what? And we can't have the internet. Like you can't look at social media. So even just that would be an experiment for 2 months of filming
Wow.
total. We got a couple nights of TV before we went to Jamaica because we got like off 2 days. So we got to have TV. So yeah, it was really interesting. But I think that's the only thing that made it kind of like almost like a social experiment, especially with girls who just met, who are females and young and hungry.
So, do you think really what was showed on TV was what you experienced, or how was that different?
We film so much. If you think about 2 months of filming, what that would be like for a whole crew of people and a set of talent to, you can't, the minute you wake up, you have to put a microphone on. There's not one moment that's not reality. So in that time, and we have to do those interviews twice a day, like by ourselves. So obviously it's a show and you can edit like certain things that were said, but the things were said.
Right.
And so they can choose to pick a lot of certain things that were said about this person and create this persona. I recently did an interview with Oliver who asked me that question, particularly about Kristen on my cycle. She was kind of known as like the mean, girl. And I said, she was also hilarious. That girl was really funny. She had me laughing the most on the show. I never saw one moment really when she was just being funny, and she was funny most of the time. So in that regard, yeah, they can choose whatever portion of you, but they are picking a part of you. So you as a talent and an actor and anything need to be mindful of you're recorded every single second, you know what I mean? So your brand never sleeps if you're on something like that. So you can't sleep on your brand. Drops the
That's,
mic.
yeah, right, exactly. No, it's true. It's
Yeah.
really true. So, what was preparing for this show like? What was going through your mind?
God, oh my God, that's such a good
I'm
question.
so
Nobody's ever
excited.
asked me that. Oh, that's such a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that because it's such a funny answer. So, I had just finished my last season at UC Irvine. So I was pretty athletic, very bulky. I was almost like, it's probably closer to like 150, 155 pounds, a lot of muscle just coming off season. So we had a period of time before we actually started filming. And one of the things that my a scout had said was like, okay, they want to pick you for the semifinals, but the only thing is you can't tell anybody and don't do any more push-ups. And I was like, okay. So it was kind of like a hint, like, it's like not, but I was already done playing basketball. And once you're not lifting anymore, it kind of starts going away. But I took it the extra mile and I went to my weight trainer for the team. And I said, okay, I got this opportunity. I can't tell you about it, but I need to know how to like slim down and kind of like tone up. So then I don't need this muscle anymore. So he put me on the paleo diet and this really intense cardio workout regimen. But I did most of it myself. And the reason why I laughed at that is because there was a moment in my apartment at the time in college where, you know, that song, I'm a maniac,
Yes.
maniac. So I would literally be on a yoga mat, like doing these bicycle kicks, like and then just such an interesting lifestyle change with the diet, like just
Right.
really pushing myself to just strictly no carbs, no sugar, no dairy, who I did that all the time. So it was like I allotted myself one tablespoon of ice cream when I did like all this paleo stuff. So it was probably the most intense thing that I trained for on my own,
Right.
by myself. But it paid off. And then, you know, it still was a journey after that, like as I grew into my new kind of model non-athlete body. So it was a journey. Like losing muscle is not easy.
It's
It's
not
harder.
right. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I had that
Yeah.
same thing with soccer. My thighs would always be bigger, and so, you know,
Girl,
trying to
my
figure out
thighs are
what to
the last to go.
do.
Like, not saying that anything's wrong. Let me just be like,
Right.
I'm actually trying to get a little bit now, you know what I mean? I love a healthy muscular body. It was just like the brand, the market that I was trying to get into. My thighs didn't fit the pants. So, like, it was just plain and simple, like, you know? And so, it wasn't like if I was stopping training, they were slowly kind of just, but yeah, muscle mass is intense. But you do, yeah, you were a soccer player, so you get it. Yeah.
Do you think playing basketball helped, like being an athlete just in general helped in the competition with the mindset and just going through all that stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. It definitely gave me the kind of competitive edge as
Right.
well. So when you talk about being a competitor, being on a team, you're always strategizing. So I noticed that from very early on, the minute that I saw we started having these interviews,
Mhm.
strategizing, like people, we were so excited in the semifinal, and we were in this hotel at Universal Studios, and all these models were running through the hotel having fun. And I still have the notebook. I was in my room by myself, and I was writing down the questions that they asked me. And then I would write down my answer to similar questions so that when they asked me, I had already answered in my head. It wasn't memory, like I was going to, but when you do that, I use that tactic in every job that I ever had after that.
Mhm.
Even medical device sale of like interviews, just like going through in your head, like strategizing. So that, yes, the work ethic, being competitive, obviously knowing my body, being determined and really just focused. I think that those things are skills that are learned as an athlete, as you know, and not everybody has them later in life. And I attribute that to my years of rigorous, workouts and showing up and being accountable, so it takes practice. So yeah, definitely that helps any industry prefers like hiring athletes. Not just nothing against the non-athlete. You guys are great.
This was your first like modeling opportunity, correct? So
Yeah.
what was that like going to your first shoot? Like what were the feelings?
Okay. You have great questions. Yeah. So it's actually interesting because they captured, like, there was an episode after the finale that was like hidden behind the scenes things, or like just extra moments. And there was a moment there where I was in hair and makeup and they caught me crying, and I don't really cry that much. Even though at the end, yes, like I was crying. Like I told you, it was a social experiment.
Mhm.
But and I like to win.
I know.
But I like to win. So, but things ever since I was little, like, don't really hit me until they're happening.
Mm-hmm.
So what even as I was like accepted for this show and I knew that I was in the semifinals and I knew that I made it into the house, it wasn't until we were like shooting the first day of the first episode that I was like, oh, we're filming. This is like, so for me, I was like, I was never got my hair and makeup done before. And that's why I was crying. And well, for a wedding when I was 8 years old. But then, so I was just like, wow, it's kind of hitting me now. And I'm really grateful. And so, yeah, it was a very humbling experience, which made me want it even more so because it was such a great opportunity for it to be my first one that
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was just like this kind of like divine thing of like, my time finally.
Manifestations or like affirmations,
Oh, girl,
that stuff.
yes,
Like, yeah,
I
talk
live.
me through it.
Let me tell you something. It's been a practice. It is not something that I knew
Okay.
necessarily when I first started that experience, but I can tell you that after and the lessons that I learned, it all came full circle when I thought about just maybe your childlike innocence of dreaming what you want and that being its purest form of manifestation. Later, as you grow into your adult life, I realized that you manifest these things through living in your authentic self,
Mhm.
but you don't really know what that is until you know that person.
Right.
And it takes some experience place to learn maturity, learn vulnerability,
Mhm.
as well as resilience, and then your truth. And so that came later. I didn't really know what that was. The industry was different than what I thought it was going to be. I met a lot, went through a lot, and ultimately came to the conclusion of my purpose. And so I think once you find out what that is and you really feel that, then you're happy every day as if you've manifested the things that you already. And so for me to have gone through that experience, like, okay, obviously something happened there. Like I didn't lie about anything that happened to me prior to the show. Bam, this happens. Okay, bam, this happens, and it wasn't necessarily like, oh my god, good news after good news. It was good news after like adversity
Right.
of now dealing with this new reality and learning it and then mastering it and then moving on to the next. And that's life.
Right.
So once you're comfortable with that and comfortable being uncomfortable when those times come, then now like the magic is real and you can like hear it, see it, feel it every day. So that's where I feel now about that journey of, and it takes practice too. It's spirituality is not something that I've reached it, I gained it, like I'm here, I did it. It's like you have to always work on it, just like if you were an athlete. It's like you have to put yourself in that state of peace and practice that, kind of cool vibe, and then
I
things
feel
just
definitely.
happen. Yeah.
What was something that Tyra said to you that stuck with you, or something that just advice, anything that?
That's an interesting question that would, wow, make me kind of emotional. um wow, you have great questions.
I'm really sentimental, and I feel like maybe you know that, but
Yeah.
just thinking about your journey, I feel like I know why you would be emotional like that. So it's just so
Yeah.
exciting.
Oh, yes.
It
Thank
just makes me
you.
happy. It really does.
Spreading good energy and vibrations and expanding consciousness. And I truly think if I can take anything from that, when somebody says, "We always a most," it was that very lesson. And she mentioned it twice in two different ways. And I don't know if she did it on purpose. It might have been my own interpretation of what she was saying. But she said, one, to never dim your light for anyone else. And it was a situation involving Kristen or something, and they, were mad at my, success or whatever, or something like that. And honestly, throughout the entire show, I was dealing with very, like, they didn't really like me. They're, she wins all the challenges. It's not fair. Like, blah, blah, blah. Just like feeling this thing and just kind of being like, okay, I'm going to get in my zone. But that was one thing. And then the second thing was it was when I got Best Photo. And when I did the perfume shoot, and it was called Dream Come True. And she mentioned something when she was critiquing me about vulnerability.
Mm.
And it's not something that I learned even years after that show. And you know what's really crazy, Marissa? It wasn't until they reshowed it on Netflix, which I hadn't seen since it premiered. Like
Really?
I don't go back. I didn't go back and like watch it. Like, look at me. I just like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. So then all of a sudden it's on Netflix and everybody's like hyping it up again. I'm like, okay, it's been a long time since I've seen that show. I'm a pretty different person. I should go back and watch it and see what they're seeing. And I saw a very young, hungry, and more like almost aggressive Kiara,
Mm.
and not just from like particular scenes, but what I wanted. And I still feel that passion towards like the things that I want. But when she said, in this photo, I finally see your vulnerability,
Mm.
and I like kind of full circle. There's also this TED talk on vulnerability. It talks about not being able to reach that point of authenticity until you're comfortable with vulnerability, and that's comfortable not being perfect, and understanding your brand, and knowing that not everybody's going to receive you well,
Right.
and knowing that that's okay because maybe they're not in their authenticity, and that my light does not dim.
Right.
And so those two things really kind of came full circle, because I went back to watch it, and I watched this episode and I was like, wow, because I was like thinking about, well, how I've changed since then and what I would have done differently, or not even just like, oh, this is cool, this is, I'm proud. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's your growth, your journey as a human being. And so to see those like little plants that were those little seeds that
Yeah.
were planted that have like, now I'm super cool vulnerability. I preach it. I'm like, hey, like mental health is really important,
Yeah.
and knowing that and going through more experiences to get me to this, like, this cool
Mhm.
place. So it started with vulnerability, and I learned a lot about that on that show and through that show.
I mean,
Hmm.
it has to be hard going into something like that and not really, someone's not really always upfront like that. Like, this is your photo, let me judge this right in front of you. So I feel like definitely, how was that like, getting thrown into that? That's definitely has to be a lot. So I can see why
Hmm.
some people are definitely defensive in that kind of way because that's not
Hmm.
common to happen in just.
Yeah, no, that was definitely interesting. But I think for me as an athlete, and my coaches were always really
Yes.
intense. So for me, it was like, okay, coach, like I wasn't, I think, but some people, yes, it's very hard,
Right.
and then we talk about that, about how it feels to be criticized and critiqued and stuff like that. So I like to take it for what it is. And I think what she was more referring to was just like this kind of edgy toughness that nobody can like crack my shell, right? Like I'm going to withstand anything and I'm good. But on the inside, like I'm ready to shatter at any moment in time. So to balance those things of, okay, like, am I presenting my true self to the world? Like if the person that shows up in this video to you and every single day, and how I'm exuding and portraying myself is truly how I feel inside,
Mm-hmm.
and that was rarely the case, but I was really strong.
Right.
And so a lot of people do that when they go through things, and understanding how and when it's appropriate, and even if you need to release, which most people have trauma to release. As you guys are all traumatized. But then you kind of just like, oh, okay, I don't feel fear or anxiety or aggression anymore. I don't really resonate with that vibration. I'm just
Right.
okay. I'm okay. you know. And so it feels really good to have finally gotten there. And I when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, look at like damaged tough Kiki. Like she's gonna win.
With that mindset, what would you change to go into the competition now? How do you think you would have gone about
Oh, with
things?
this mindset?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, here's what I will say
Right.
is that I was just contemplating this the other day, in that if I laugh about like the things that I would have done differently with the knowledge that I have now.
Right.
But with the knowledge that I have now, um, I probably wouldn't have even experienced those things. And it would have been maybe like a completely different level of, or what have you, but it's not something that can be like even measured, because with where I am now, the opportunities could be that much greater that are tomorrow,
Right.
right? And yesterday, that opportunity was the biggest thing that could have ever happened to me. today it would be an honor and be like, oh my God, Tyra, like, wow, yes, let's go, let's like all star, let's do this. But it's not necessarily like the next like chateau of my purpose here and whatever that is. And so now in this space of like, wow, the empire that I'm building and the impact that I want to make more so. Because back then it's more from your ego. It's more like, what is this doing for me? Like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Are people receiving me well? Like, what's going to happen to me? I don't know anything. And as I transitioned into my 30s, I'm just like, I am fine and enough. It's not about me, but more so what I leave and what I'm like, provide, what the impact that I'm leaving. And that's a much more comfortable, happy space to vibrate in. And comes with amazing perks and amazing things. It's just like, oh my God, my life, I couldn't even imagine it before because just like this, I was just like, oh my God, so mind blown yet again. So you got to go through these things. Like I probably like, I don't even know if I would have been negotiating a different contract in the beginning, like, just because also I now have experience that I didn't have back then.
Right.
I wouldn't have, you know what I mean? Like that grew me into who I am. So it's one thing to have business savvy and knowledge, but another thing to get better every single shoot. You can't just like snap that into your head. You have to go through that work. So I went through the work.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. So I'm trying to even imagine being into a house with teenagers,
Mhm. It
teenage girls. What was dealing with that like?
was interesting because I sometimes forgot that I had to remember that Laura and I were the only ones, I think, like turning 21
Right.
at the time. And that there was a wide range of our age groups and stuff like that. And when you also factor in the no phone thing, like even if you were to take a group of adults that are the same age, if you take it with their phone, you're gonna get some like it's some like, and now we have to socialize normally,
Right.
you know what I mean? And so it's weird for anybody because everybody's so attached to their devices now. So once you didn't have that, it was kind of like almost like going to camp.
Yeah.
If you were just like at a camp and you were just like, okay, we're here, we're experiencing this thing. Every day is cool. Where are you from? What are you like? Um, and of course we're all ladies that are, gonna be hormonal at the same time, because it was a long 2 months is a long time. So yeah. And so, and it gets even more intense after one person leaves because now chances are more higher that you'll be going home the next time. So for me, I had a really cool we had a person that took care of us. Her name was Van. And we had like a production manager that like we couldn't go anywhere alone. So and she escorted us everywhere and she became our friend. And Van has been with the season for years. And one day I kind of was like letting it get to me. I was just like, gosh, like I am like so not used to this type of like behavior and maturity. And like, I don't even know what to do. Like I'm usually received well. It's not really bothering me, but this is like hard that I have to live here,
Right.
And I want to be cool. But and she said, Kiki, there's always one girl. And it's usually the girl that they think is going to win. So you just got to stay strong. And she like brought me to real. Like you're not here for that. You think about your family. Every day is cool. Do your thing. Nastasia was really cool too. So it kind of like she gave me a reality check to be like, woof, this is not about your emotions. And so it kind of gave me that edge again. I was like, okay, coach, boom. And I went back into my like really hard Kiki, like you know how it is on the field. I'm just like, like it's just good to have a condensed, crazy. So,
Definitely. Well, you could.
you have to release it. Yeah.
If something happens, you're still in the house with all these people. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but that's part of the competition. So that's
Yeah.
just building.
Yeah. And Nastasia was cool too, like I said. And like we hung out a lot and we still talk, we're cool. And we were always busy. We really were. We didn't have much time to be that catty because they kept us pretty busy. Yeah.
Asked a lot about rejection. Like, how do you handle that? And why is it such a strong skill that you need in this industry, particularly? Because I think this is kind of a loaded question, but I feel like a lot of people think that models are booking jobs one right after the other, which was obviously the dream, but that's not always the case. So
no, yeah, it's that's also another amazing question. rejection is not something that is normal.
Right.
And we are taught, especially when we're younger, that rejection doesn't feel good. And it triggers not so good feelings in your gut when you feel rejected. And so I think it's really important for models to understand that rejection is just as much a part of this job and lifestyle as your diet and exercise routine, because we do have so many castings that like rejection is just like it rolls off and you go to the next one. It's
Right.
not like if you did book every job, it'd be pretty boring because you'd be on every single campaign. Number one. Number two, it's not necessarily something to take personally. So once you can detach from the feeling of rejection that feels personal, like somebody you think is hot that doesn't think that you're cute, or the rejection of just like, oh, they decided to go another route and there's 5 more jobs for me over here and I'm just going to go focus on those, and not necessarily that affect you, because it did in the beginning, especially after top model. I thought I was going to be like, no, you're just like everybody else, you have to work for everything. So understanding that rejection is a part of hard work. You know what I mean? It's a part of your experience and growing and knowing the business. So yeah, I mean, you get to a point where you can't even accept every job. Like, it's not like there's just some you can do and some you can't do. This is a business. It's not like, oh no, I'm never going to model again and they hate me. It's like, no, you have a particular look and a particular brand. You need to make sure your book is lining up to that and go ahead and go after those jobs, and your agency will send you out and but if the ones that quit because of that feeling in the beginning, that don't necessarily see the potential of what this career could be, because they're just like, ooh, not for me. Ow, I hurt.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna hurt. Like like you have to feel it, and then you don't feel it anymore. Like after that, you're just like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
go get a juice.
In the beginning, yes, it's definitely gonna hurt a little bit because sometimes it's one right after the other, especially if you don't meet the standards of something. So like I face with my height rejection all the time, and even I would get to places where I thought I was gonna walk, and they were like, "I didn't realize how small you were." Even knowing that, that's why I really resonate with what you said about not believing it until you're there. Like that's something that I've really come to learn. Even if someone says, "Yes, you're doing this," I'm not excited until I've done it. Well, it's good to be excited, but it sounds bad, but it's the truth.
Grateful for the opportunity if it happens, but not necessarily let yourself get disappointed by factoring that measure of just like, what's reliable and what's whatever, but then getting there, and then absolutely, because you don't want to doubt things either. You don't want to be like, oh, okay, we'll see, and it's to do, like, it'll be wonderful if it happened.
Right.
And I'm grateful, so but yeah, it's not an easy industry, and everybody deals with it. And there is a particular standard, but there are definitely a lot more, I think, jobs and avenues and like opportunities that people are would be more aware of if they kept going and tried to stick with it. But again, it's not going to be easy for anybody. It's not. It's just like you have to love this. You have to do it because you're loving it.
Going into that things are like handed to you. Like once you get something, or once you get a really big opportunity, that's it. Like you don't have to do anything else. That's definitely not the case. There's no stopping. So do you think, to kind of put aside the rumors that if you get given an opportunity, like that's it, there's no more work, you can attest that that's not true, correct?
No. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not. I mean, if you get a big campaign like that, and you get like $50,000 and you feel like you want to take a little break or something, but no, that job is still a lot of hard work, and you're always looking to revamp your book. Of course, if you do get a campaign like that, then it does up your pay scale. You have now more experience to pull from, stuff like that. But you can't get lazy. It's like being a model is a lifestyle. You have to always be working out. You have to always be drinking water. You have to always be having like your skin routine and taking care of yourself, and making sure you're properly groomed and that you look like your book. You're ready for any casting at any point in time. So yeah, it's definitely more grind than people, I think, realize when they're first starting out, because every job is like 3 jobs in one. But it is a blessing to be able to do. Like, it's just it's really, really, it's a fun opportunity if you enjoy what you're doing and you're working with the right team.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What's any safety tips that you have for my younger followers? Because I always try to, like I say, people in this industry obviously aren't always out for the best, which that could be any industry, but particularly just safety wise, what do you suggest they should do?
Definitely check your sources and know how to do so. Everything is Googleable. And a lot of times when you see something that's like some type of management, you have to decipher if this is an actual agency with a main board with models that go out on a regular basis, and these are the jobs that they have gotten. You can see their book and portfolio clearly. You can definitely tell if it's a real agency or not by just kind of how the casting goes. If you need training and you want to invest in like a mentor or something, then do that. But understand that that's what that is, and know how to build yourself and like what it is you're trying to get out of that particular experience, because you really want to be careful of the types of pictures you take and who you take them with. And being so hungry that you're thinking you need to do something that's against your morals or that makes you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to do. Nothing in this industry should make you feel uncomfortable ever.
Right.
And if it does, then
Right.
refer to a friend, ask a friend, go, you know what I mean? Ask an agent, go, it's ask the question. Don't think that I need to keep this a secret because this might be a great opportunity for me. And they're telling me this. And I really think this can help me, because you could do something that could hurt your entire career when somebody has certain pictures like that. So definitely start simple with digitals and experiencing for yourself what it's like to go into an agency that has models, talk to agents, go to shows, study branding, and just shoot, really just practice shooting. And you can do that with a phone, but at the same time, like, you just want to like get to a point where you understand your brand, and you didn't let anybody like compromise you for it. So it's up to you to do the research and find the right person. And of course, there's lots of information out there, and everybody can promise you something. But basically, the bottom line is your book speaks for itself, and it gets you into an agency that gets you representation, and they represent you and give you big jobs. There's a difference between a mother agent and a manager, and so understand those things, and don't give up. You just keep shooting and keep learning. But definitely don't do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, for sure. There's nothing, and there's a lot of people out there who exploit that idea that that's a requirement in the industry, when it is not. It is not a requirement. Yeah.
So if a photographer, for example, I always say, bring a friend, bring a parent, a guardian with you. And
Yeah.
if the photographer's uncomfortable with that, then that's a red flag, right?
Big red flag. Yeah.
Exactly. So
don't ever go anywhere by yourself. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I
Yeah,
would
good job.
say that to anyone who asks or is wondering. This is my last question. I just thought of it. Are you excited for Maya to see all of your modeling photos, your walks? I always think of that. Like, did you think of that when you were a teenager? Like, oh, one day,
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did, because I've always wanted to be a mama. So like I always thought about like, kind of wow. And as it happens, she's kind of been going through this experience with me. So it's interesting that, yeah, you've seen her when she was backstage at New York Fashion Week. She was a baby, 18 months. So like it's kind of become a part of her, to where she's naturally like this kind of like, and she's so proud. We actually she did her first commercial with mommy, and she's so proud of it that like she just talks, she's like, well, we did our first commercial. And I was, she was just so happy. It was this thing for Downtown Summerlin, and she got her first paycheck and everything. And she did so well. And not saying that I would push her into anything like that. It was just an opportunity for family casting and whatever she wanted to do. But it definitely makes me proud to have her with me through this as well. I'm going through it, and just watching the what she's becoming as it's happening is just like Maya 2.0 over there. She's just such a natural walker, poser, entertainer, like she's a star, like, and has so much confidence. And it's just like, it's beautiful to watch, like, your little thing that you made, like doing these things that you do for a living. And she watches me teach online too. So like sometimes she'll come and she'll be doing the commercial.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I really, really enjoy it. It's she's my best work and I'm very proud.
So
Yeah.
I definitely
That's
can see
amazing.
her doing something like this in her future. She just loves being around people and
Yeah, she's so social and like so beautiful
yeah,
and so sure of herself,
yes.
so tall too. She's got, look at that, and the hair and the eyes, and just like, whoa. So yeah, that's a little girl. Thank you so much. This was so fun. I wanted to, because I'm also proud of you.
How you liked it, and thank you so much.